The Bible is clear that humans are not given authority to decide who is worthy of God, because that role belongs to God alone. Passages like 1 Samuel 16:7 say that while humans look at outward appearance, the Lord looks at the heart, and Romans 14:4 challenges people by asking who they are to judge another's servant, since each person stands or falls before their own master. Jesus also strongly warned against this mindset in Matthew 7:1-5, teaching, "Judge not, that you be not judged," pointing out that people often try to remove a speck from someone else's eye while ignoring the plank in their own. And in Luke 18:9-14, he rebuked those who trusted in their own righteousness and looked down on others, showing that humility, not self-appointed judgment, justifies a person before God. Additionally, James 4:11-12 states that when people judge others, they put themselves in the place of the lawgiver. But there is only one lawgiver and judge who is able to save and destroy, making it clear that claiming authority to decide who is worthy of God is not just arrogance, but a direct overstep into God's domain. While the consistent message of Scripture is that salvation and worthiness come through God's grace, not human approval, as seen in Ephesians 2:8-9. Meaning no person has the right to act as the gatekeeper of God's mercy. The verse you're referring to comes from Leviticus 18:22 and also Leviticus 20:13, where in the context of ancient Israel's laws it says that a man should not lie with another man as with a woman. But understanding it requires context because these laws were part of a broader holiness code given to a specific people at a specific time, addressing ritual purity, idolatry, and cultural practices of surrounding nations, many of which involved exploitative or pagan sexual rituals. Some scholars and believers argue that these passages are not directly addressing modern concepts of sexual orientation or committed same-sex relationships as understood today, but rather specific behaviors tied to domination, temple prostitution, or violations of social order in that historical setting, while others interpret them as moral laws still applicable. So the claim that it is not directed toward LGBT people comes from the view that the text does not speak about identity, love, or lifelong partnership, as we define them now, but instead about particular acts within a very different cultural and covenant framework. And across the wider Bible, the emphasis repeatedly returns to themes like love, humility, and leaving ultimate judgment to God rather than humans deciding worth or standing. This verse can be addressed directly to those involved in crimes in the Epstein files, including Trump, traffickings of children. If it was in any way directed for same gender, then it will clearly include, "Women shall not layeth with women as menkind," and any animal caught sleeping with same gender will not enter heaven or something like that, but it does not say any of that. For you to assume this is for LGBT means that you are wrong. That verse was given for exploitation, trafficking, forced abuse, cult ritual abuse, but they twisted it against LGBTQA men and men only. And again, I say if it was directed for LGBTQA, it will also include women too. Across history, there have absolutely been times when people in power used religion, including the Bible, to control others, justify authority, or push agendas, sometimes distorting or selectively quoting Scripture to do it. You can see that in different eras where leaders mixed faith with politics or social control. But it would be inaccurate to say that the Bible itself was created for that purpose, or that every use of it in leadership is manipulation, because the text has also been the foundation for movements that challenged power, defended the oppressed, and called out injustice. Think about how its teachings on justice, mercy, and equality before God have been used to confront abuse, not support it. The real issue isn't simply the Bible versus people. It's how humans interpret and apply it, because the same text can be used either to control or to liberate depending on the heart, intention, and honesty of the person using it. So a sharper, more grounded way to say it is this: some people in power have misused the Bible to maintain control. But that doesn't mean the message itself is a lie. It means humans are capable of twisting truth when it benefits them, which ironically is something the Bible itself repeatedly warns about. Religion, including Christianity, has at times been used by people in power as a tool of control, but what happened in each of the examples you named came from a mix of fear, politics, economics, and human ambition, not just belief itself. In the Salem witch trials of 1692, a strict Puritan community believed deeply in spiritual warfare and the reality of the devil, and leaders and accusers used religious language to justify fear-driven accusations. People, mostly women, were accused of witchcraft with little to no real evidence. Verses about sorcery and evil were taken literally and applied without balance, and fear was framed as righteous concern. But in reality, it was not a coordinated plan to gain power through genocide. It was mass hysteria, paranoia, and a broken justice system wrapped in religious language. In the case of indigenous, native peoples, this is one of the clearest examples where religion was tied to control and conquest, as European colonizers displaced, killed, and forced assimilation on native populations, using ideas like civilizing or converting indigenous people to justify taking land and suppressing cultures, with some invoking doctrines like the doctrine of discovery, and claiming divine approval for expansion. Yet the deeper reality is that the driving force was largely land, resources, and empire building, with religion used to morally justify those actions. During the transatlantic slave trade, millions of Africans were enslaved and treated as property, and religion was used by slaveholders who quoted isolated Bible passages about servitude to demand obedience while deliberately hiding or ignoring themes of liberation and equality, even restricting enslaved people from reading the Bible themselves, making it clear that, while the system was economic exploitation at its core, religion was selectively used to maintain control and suppress resistance. Even though at the same time, many abolitionists used the Bible to fight against slavery, showing both misuse and resistance from the same text. Regarding Jewish people and anti-Semitism leading up to the Holocaust, Jewish communities faced centuries of discrimination, expulsions, and ultimately genocide under Nazi Germany. And while some misinterpretations of Christian texts were historically used to blame Jewish people for Jesus' death and fuel prejudice, by the time of the Holocaust, the ideology driving it was primarily racial and political rather than rooted in biblical teaching, though earlier religious prejudice made it easier for that hatred to spread. The honest takeaway is that religion has indeed been misused as a tool of control and justification, but in every case the deeper drivers were power, fear, greed, and human corruption. And importantly, the same religious texts have also been used to challenge oppression, inspire justice, and expose wrongdoing. The truth is that people did not need religion to commit these wrongs. They used it because it gave their actions moral cover and authority, which is very different from saying the core message itself was designed for manipulation. Love always. God bless you all.